Utopia is an upscale club where every man can have a perfect dream lover.
What a perfect girlfriend.
Mistress.
We can drink anyone under the table.
Be a mother.
Be a sister. Be a daughter.
And most of all, make them happy.
In Utopia, you can even indulge in cosplay, dressing up as any character you like. However, one day, a woman named Natalie killed a customer while serving. The shareholders were very angry upon learning of this incident.
I have invested. You can't have the girls killing the clients. Everyone signs a disclaimer that playing here could be hazardous to their health.
The person in charge promised to resolve the issue as soon as possible. On the indoor street, a blonde woman was kidnapped by an assailant who covered her face. She was shoved into a black van. The buyer counted cash and paid the trafficker. And just like that, a person went missing. 3 weeks passed, and the blonde woman's husband Damon was investigating the disappearance with all his might. He was an agent of MI6. His network was powerful, and he quickly traced it back to the trafficker. Damon interrupted the trafficker who was flirting with a passerby. He said, "I spoke with you on the phone earlier. Why don't we discuss business over at the nearby cafe?" The trafficker followed Damon inside. The next second, he was thrown into the bathroom. Damon grabbed the trafficker and slammed him against the sink.
Tell me where she is. I don't know anything. You're gonna tell me where she is?
The trafficker had to confess, "I really don't know. The buyer just asked me to help find a few girls." One of his accomplices burst in. Damon blocked the attack and kicked back. He twisted off the opponent's weapon and kicked his accomplice's calf, smashing him towards the sink. Damon then grabbed the trafficker for questioning. He broke the other man's forearm. The guests outside were bewildered, listening to the screams coming from the bathroom. After finishing the interrogation, Damon drove away. Memories of Mary flooded back. They had met, gotten to know, and fallen in love. But it had all ended badly because of Damon's job. Mary grew tired of the anxious waiting. She feared that one day her husband would die on a mission, so she recently proposed a breakup. Damon had no reason to keep her, but he still loved Mary deeply. Now he discovered that she was trapped in a place called Utopia. His friend Rupert helped him get a fake ID, and forged social media history, and evidence of being an active investor in the market. With this, Damon could infiltrate Utopia as a client, and conduct his investigation in secret. Damon submitted an appointment under a fake name. As soon as he reached the entrance, a drone flew in to verify his identity. After confirming the information was correct, the gates of Utopia opened wide. Damon stopped in front of a luxurious building. A valet took the keys, offering warm service. The lobby was filled with well-known entrepreneurs. The receptionist had a sweet smile as she guided everyone into the hall. On a massive electronic screen, the person in charge, Jeremy, was introducing Utopia. The facility was located in the Republic of Estovia, covering 2,000 acres. The entire facility was divided into various styles, including the medieval period, ancient Rome, and France during World War II. Each client could choose the era they wanted to experience, and the character they wished to become. Then, they could select their desired partner on a tablet. The beautiful women would dress up according to the customer's choice. They wore mechanical smiles on their faces, appearing to have been brainwashed and controlled by Utopia. Investor Carl was assigning work areas to the newcomers. Girls of various skin tones were allocated to virtual areas, such as Rome, Egypt, France, and the Wild West. Carl quickly noticed Damon's wife Mary, and was captivated by her sweet smile. Damon was still unaware that his wife had been brainwashed. He followed the crowd into the party venue, which was crowded with beautiful women. Mary was sitting at the bar, surrounded and praised by male customers. One bespectacled man remarked, "The surgery Jeremy did on these women's prefrontal cortices is truly impressive." Staff member B saw Damon searching for someone, and approached him to ask what assistance he needed.
Your file says you've lost a loved one.
Yes, my wife. She passed away recently, also.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Well, we can customize your experience. Perhaps find someone who resembles your spouse.
Damon casually asked, "Where do these girls come from?" B replied, "We accept applications from all over the world, but we only select the best girls to join. They receive professional training here, and then undergo enhancements using specialized software." Damon feigned surprise and asked, "What software?" B explained, "You can think of it as a small enhancement chip that can be implanted in the girls' brains, but it's safe and harmless." At this moment, Damon spotted Mary. Two men were already arguing over her. Damon approached them and slipped a chip into one of the man's pockets. Then he got closer to Mary and asked, "Have we met somewhere before?" Mary seemed to be somewhat touched, but she didn't recognize Damon. At this moment, Jeremy took the stage to speak. He welcomed the guests first. He explained that once in Utopia, all guests would be cut off from the outside world, and communication devices would be completely disabled. He walked over to Natalie, who had recently killed a guest, and had been brainwashed again to become a noble's plaything. Carl snatched Mary away from Damon and said, "This young lady has already been chosen by me." Damon was anxious but couldn't reveal himself, so he had to go pick up his cosplay outfit accompanied by others.
You're about to enter the World War II set. There will be explosions and war sound. Don't be afraid and enjoy.
Damon entered the World War II setting, and used specific invisible headphones to ask Rupert if he had any discoveries. Rupert attempted to hack into Utopia's system but found it almost flawless. Damon informed Rupert about what Bea had mentioned earlier, that the girls here seemed to have undergone some sort of brain surgery. Mary no longer recognized him at all. Rupert was very surprised to hear this, because similar technology was difficult for the US military to achieve. Their conversation was soon interrupted by Natalie. They walked into a club on the street together. To their surprise, Mary was also there. She was dressed as a sexy dancer, teasing Damon. Natalie discreetly left. Damon followed Mary to a quiet place to talk. On the way, he took down a guy who tried to grab someone. Just as he dealt with one, Carl came looking for him again. This guy was accompanied by 2 bodyguards. Damon wasn't afraid of them, but Natalie came over and pulled him away. Because those bodyguards belonged to Utopia, it was best not to mess with them. Meanwhile, Carl and Mary had arranged to meet tonight. She was supposed to act according to her programming, but familiar memories began to resurface after meeting Damon. As night approached, the atmosphere in Utopia became even more exhilarating. They held a grand Roman villa party. The women here were scantily clad, existing solely to please the clients. Damon led Natalie back to the room, where there was actually a blonde woman inside. Damon hurriedly told the two to get dressed, and asked how long they had been there. Natalie showed a puzzled expression. She didn't remember anything. How did she get here? Where did she live before? These crucial memories were like missing pieces of a puzzle. Damon noticed a camera hidden behind the mirror. He turned Natalie away and asked her to do him a favor. "Come meet me at the World War II set tomorrow." At this point, Mary had opened Pandora's box, and more memories were returning to her mind. A woman named Joan noticed Mary.
You're starting to have memories. Be careful. They're always watching.
It turns out that Utopia hides some victims, who have already regained their memories. They don't want Jeremy to discover them and be brainwashed again, so they maintain a facade. Early the next morning, several security personnel knocked on Damon's door, and took him to the director's office. Jeremy summoned Damon under the pretense of seeking investment, just to search his room for encrypted communications. The security department discovered unauthorized military-grade signals inside Utopia. Luckily, Damon had a backup plan. Remember the chip he had slipped into the male client's pocket? That was a coded data transmitter, which completely diverted the security team's attention. With this, Damon could operate with relative freedom to carry out some small actions. He arrived at the World War II set as promised. Although Natalie didn't understand why Damon had to see Mary, she received an administrative order from Joan to help Mary avoid surveillance and meet Damon. It's important to know that the movements of the female staff here were monitored from the back end. Damon immediately reported to Rupert, who advised him to find a way to the VIP room. There should be an electrical panel there. If he could find a way to cut the transmission, it would help the trapped girls. Damon then entered the club, found Mary, and slipped her the note with the administrative order. Mary had begun to vaguely remember Damon, so she rejected Carl's invitation. She had already decided to go to Damon's room that night. Carl couldn't let it go, so while Mary was away, he warned Damon not to covet someone else's property. At the same time, with no guests, Natalie, who had no guests, was assigned by Bea to the Wild West to entertain new guests. But this cowboy loved violence. He not only intimidated Natalie with a gun, but also roughly pushed her to the ground. In a critical moment, Joan appeared just in time. She stabbed the cowboy in the groin and then sliced open his jaw. Meanwhile, Damon successfully found the electrical panel to cause disruption, but there was no reaction from outside. Rupert's method was completely ineffective. 2 bodyguards noticed Damon's actions, and a fierce battle was about to break out. The 3 of them fought chaotically in the cramped VIP room. Damon was from MI6. These ordinary thugs weren't worthy of carrying his shoes. Damon successfully took down 2 bodyguards, but was also hit on the head. Mary hurried over to support him back to the room. Damon covered the camera with his suit and then, under Rupert's guidance, scanned Mary's brainwave patterns. He tried to trace where her brain transmissions were coming from. The security department soon detected something unusual, and quickly pinpointed the signal source. By the time the security personnel arrived at their room, Damon had already escaped with Mary. Using the data he had transmitted back, Rupert successfully activated a jammer to interfere with Utopia's security system. He obtained an overview map of the entire base and sent it to Damon, who then hid with Mary. The two arrived at the place where the victims were held, and security personnel soon came looking for them. At a critical moment, Natalie and Joan appeared just in time. They helped take down the attacking security guard, and obtained the elevator card from him. The four of them used the card to enter the elevator. Arriving at Utopia's secret area, many sleeping victims were laid out here, some of whom had been held for several years. What was most surprising was that the real Joan was also lying in a sleep pod. It turned out that all the female staff serving the guests were replicas. Utopia didn't use artificial intelligence to control thoughts, but instead used real human minds to control the actions of these replicas. Just like when you sleep, your body is inactive, but your mind remains active.
Something is transmitting those EEGs and we need to stop it. When the info feed is disrupted, then those that are gonna wake up will wake up. What about the others? The replicas. What happens to them? God only knows.
Damon successfully found the real Mary, and immediately activated the awakening sequence. He didn't notice the strange expressions of the replicas. Damon was very happy to see his lover wake up, but the next second he was targeted by the replica. The replica didn't care what she was. Her desire to survive was genuine. Jeremy also arrived at the scene, of course bringing a large group of bodyguards with him.
I don't expect you to understand it, but there's a greater good to what I'm doing.
Kidnapping women, forcing them into your service while their replicas are made to please miniature fucked up fantasy utopia?
Jeremy shamelessly stated that this was the direction of the future. He ordered Security Chief Johnny to take Damon away, and then put Mary back to sleep. He also captured Natalie's replica and prepared to send it to scrap. Damon brushed past her and immediately took out a few escorting guards. He then took Natalie and fled. Rupert instructed Damon to approach the opposite T-stage, where there was a signal transmitter. He would attempt to remotely hack into Utopia's security system, to awaken the hypnotized individuals. Damon quietly moved forward with Natalie and Joan. On the way, he encountered Carl, picked up a long gun from the ground, and pierced Carl right through. He then infiltrated the location Rupert mentioned, and placed the chip on the transmitter. This helped Rupert successfully infiltrate, and the operation was halfway done. A grenade fell from above. Damon quickly grabbed it and threw it at the enemies, blowing them apart. Mary's replica emerged from the smoke, aiming to shoot Damon. Rupert finally shut down the sleep pods, causing all replicas to freeze, while the imprisoned women gradually awakened. Unexpectedly, the replicas quickly rebooted and revived.
The replicants are able to function without the need of the human hosts. Kill the humans.
Jeremy was indeed a cold-blooded businessman. As long as the replica's work wasn't affected, there was no need for the originals to exist. Joan heard the gunfire and realized the situation was dire, quickly taking Natalie up to help. Mary's replica, for some unknown reason, actually wanted to kill Damon and was shot dead by the real Mary. Soon after, Damon entrusted his wife to the replicas for care, and stayed behind to deal with the threats. Johnny was indeed the security chief. He was on a completely different level from those lowly thugs. Damon's arm was unfortunately cut, so he looked for an opportunity to quickly disarm Johnny. He knocked Johnny down and broke his neck with one foot. Meanwhile, he intercepted the fleeing replicas, still issuing orders from a position of authority.
You won't shoot me.
It was then that Bea realized the replicas were no longer under control. To save herself, she had to open the door and let Natalie and the others escape. The scene shifted back to Damon. He rushed all the way to the door with the replicas, but was surrounded by the enemy. The replicas were shot dead on the spot. Fortunately, Damon safely regrouped with Mary. However, Jeremy didn't give up. He realized he no longer needed humans, and could create a second utopia using new technology.
We're gonna have to go back for the others.
This is the beginning of the resistance.
The film ends here, and it seems the director intends to make a sequel. The entire film skates on thin ice, with most of the plot unable to pass censorship. It feels like a low-budget imitation of Westworld, just swapping the hosts for real people who have been kidnapped and brainwashed. The so-called utopia is just a large themed club. The fight scenes of the male lead were passable. Several actresses, due to their lack of fame, had varying degrees of nudity in their scenes. Only the female lead had appeared in the reboot of Wrong Turn, making her somewhat more recognizable among the actresses in this film. Thus, she was also the only character with a more conservative portrayal, leaving little room for acting range. If you enjoy my channel, please click subscribe.